Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Rumapal. Welcome you all to Chaitanya Studio of Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University Ahmedabad. We are dealing with lecture series of postgraduate diploma in human resource in the subject of strategic management. In our last lecture, we have come across the definition of strategic management. We have come to know the planning process. Right? We have come to know all dimensions of strategic management, the features, the pros, the pitfalls. In today's lecture, we will focus on environmental analysis. So, we will focus on block 2, unit 1, which is all about environmental analysis. So, start with learning objectives. So, after learning this unit, you will be able to understand the external and internal environment. Parts comes under external environment, right? So, after learning this unit, you will be able to understand the external and internal environment. So, the organizations are open systems. So, a number of environmental factors influence them inevitably. So, it is up to managers to ensure that this influence is harnessed in a positive way, leading to organizational success. The chief problem here is that given the vast number and range of external influences, so how can managers hope to monitor, analyze and respond to environmental conditions? So one useful way out, is to focus on the most important ones. So impacting the crucial constituencies of an organization, that is suppliers, competitors and buyers. The logic according to Grant is quite simple. So for the firm to make profit, it must create value of customers or buyers. So hence the need to understand the customers. Then second, while creating value, the firm has to obtain goods and services from suppliers. So it is must value its suppliers and firm enduring business relationships with them. So, and while creating value for its buyers, the firm must closely look at the rivals who are there in the arena competing for the same. So, here, hence, the firm must understand the competition. So, thus buyers, suppliers and the competitors, they form the substance of the goods or the services, right? So, firms industry, it's all about the environment. It's without this environment, it's not how these firms will create an impact. So so managers must have a deep understanding and appreciation of the environment that our organization functions. And to an organizations, consider the analogy of a swimmer crossing a wide stream. The swimmer must assess the current obstacles and distance before setting out. So, if these elements are not properly understood, the swimmer might end up too far upstream or downstreams. So, the organization is like the swimmer and the environment is like a stream. Right? So, just as the swimmer needs to understand conditions in the water, right, the organization must understand the best ingredients of its environment to properly change directions among them. So the environment of business is the aggregate of conditions, the conditions, events and influence that surround, right? So this is the affect it. So all these things are very important. So since the organization is part of a broader social system, it has to work within the framework provided by the society and is and the constituents, right? So for the sake of simplicity, the environmental forces could be classified into two categories, that is internal environment. Now let's start with the features of environment. So this environment, it has a three features, that is complex, dynamic and challenging. The environment comprises of multifarious events, factors, conditions and influences arising from various sources. So they interact with each other constantly and often produce an entirely new set of influences. It is not easy to state clearly as to what kind of forces constitutes a given environment. Now moving forward to the next, that is dynamic. So the environment of an organization is dynamic and constantly changing. So changes in technology, government regulations, competitive forces and compel organizations to shift gears and change directions quite often. So at times there could be too many changes in too little time, so leading to shock and surprises in the marketplace. Right. So now, next moving forward to next, that is challenging. All firms are impacted by political, legal, economic, technological and social systems and trends. Together, these elements comprises the macro environment of business firms. So these forces are so dynamic that their constant change presents myriad opportunities and threats of or the constraints to strategic managers. Okay. Now moving forward to the components of external environment that we need to know. Right. So most managers, they are ready to agree that an organizational external environment is more difficult to understand and manage than the internal environment. Because internal, it's all about the internal things, but when it comes to external, it's a different, it's a foreign thing. So reasons are fairly obvious. The external forces are large in a number, difficult to assess and predict, and are not easily amenable to advanced planning and policy making. So writers like Sitchild have therefore suggested that changes in the external environment are very significant. Managers must be able to recognize opportunities and threats from outside and respond to this properly. Essentially, organizations have to deal with economic, social, political, technological, regulatory, market, and supplier related effects, which offer opportunities and pose threats at regular intervals. To remain competitive, organizations must visualize these trends and deploy their resources. So we will now examine each one of the external environment forces to understand better how they affect strategic management. So let's start with economic environment. Okay, so economic factors throw light on the nature and direction of the economy in which a firm operates. So the consumption patterns are usually governed by the relative affluence of market segments. So therefore, while carrying out strategic planning exercises, the firms must focus attention on economic trends. So in this segment that affects its industry, so low interest rates on personal savings, for example, could compel individuals to move towards equity and bond markets, so leading to a boom for the capital market activity and mutual fund industry. So at the national and international level, the firm must look into the general availability of credit, the level of disposable income, and the propensity of people to spend. So interest rates, inflation rates, then unemployment rates, and trends in the gross national product, government policies, sectoral growth rates of agriculture, industry, infrastructure. So these are other economic influences it must consider. Right. Now moving forward to next, that is social and cultural environment. So, the social factors that affect a firm include the values, the attitudes, the beliefs, opinions, and lifestyles of persons in the firm's external environment. So, as developed from from the demographic, the cultural, the religious, the educational, and ethnic conditioning, like other forces in the external environment, social factors change continually. As the social attitudes, beliefs, and values change, so does the demand for various types of dresses, books, the leisure activities also also comes under, right? So let's examine these factors in greater detail. Okay, now the factor that is demographic factors. Okay, so when it comes to demographic factors, so demographic characteristics such as population, then age, then distribution, then religious, then compositions, literacy levels, interstate migration, rural, urban mobility, then income distribution, etc., right, influence a firm's strategic plans significantly. The entry of a woman into the labor market has in recent times affected the hiring and compensation policies of their employers. So this has also expanded the market for a wide range of products and services, necessitated by their absence from their homes, such as convenience foods, microwave ovens, daycare centers. So the shift in age distribution caused by improved birth control methods have literally compelled producers to go after youth oriented goods. So beauty products, hair and skincare preparations, fitness equipment comes under. So the growing number of senior citizens has made many government to pay more attention to tax exemptions. So social security benefits it comes. Then another important concern is the desire for a better quality of work life. So employees expect more from organizations than simply a paycheck. So they want cleaner air and water as well as more leisure time to enjoy life more fully. So the labor mobility across different occupations and regions in recent times has cut down wage differentials greatly. Now the next one, that is cultural factors. The social attitudes, values, customs, beliefs, rituals, and practices also influence businesses' practices in a major way. So the Christmas offers great financial opportunities for card companies, the toy retailers, tree growers, mail order catalogs, firms, and other related businesses. So the social values refers to abstract thinking about what is good, right, and desirable. So beliefs, on the other hand, reflect the characteristics of physical and social phenomena. So we may believe, for example, that a high-fat diet causes cancer or that chocolate causes acne. Beliefs are important. So whether right or wrong. So in that way, they affect how we may behave and what we buy. For example, we can give example for McDonald's. McDonald's doesn't serve the beef burgers in India because in India consider the cow as a as a holy animals, as a sacred. So Hindu traditions prohibit the consumption of beef in any form. So values and beliefs vary from culture to culture and before going ahead in a big way. Moving forward to next, that is religious, ethical, and moral factors. So India is a country where people belonging to almost all religions, faiths live Hindus, then Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, Buddhists, and Jains. They speak different languages. With a population of over 1 billion and 65% literacy level, the country offers exciting opportunities to marketers. The country's specific risks like corruption, political instability, worst cultural differences, the poor infrastructure are equally threatening. So the ethical and moral roots of social are, however, very strong belief in joint family system, especially in North India. So Delhi believe in destiny, respect elders and senior citizens, performs rituals, and are generally God fearing. So the spread of this spread of consumerism, the rise of middle class with high disposable incomes, the lifestyles of people working in software, telecom, media, and multinational companies and stock market addicts seems to have changed the social cultural scenario in recent times. So after the 90s, people have started, rationalizing the philosophy. Ends justify the means. Such lower ethnical standards have now become a real threat to business organizations, which have traditionally been carrying out their operations in a fair way. Right? Now moving forward to the next, that is political environment. Okay. So many political factors influences how managers formulate and implement the strategic directions due to the socialist learning of some of the ministers. So Coca-Cola, so one of the example is that is Coca-Cola and IBM had to move out of India in the late 70s. So a deep-seated fear of multinational made the political leaders to shut the door on giant multinational companies for a painfully long time. So entry barriers, protectionist policies, high tariffs, anti-nationalist slogans, bad publicity have had a cumulative effect in creating a closed economic model where people had to wait for years to buy a budget scooter or a Fiat car in India. So when things turned from bad to worse, the situation was sought to be remedied through a bold liberalization program in the early 90s. So apart from willingness to bend the rules and get along the times, political stability is also essential for economic growth. So after the Babri Masjid demolition in 1992, economic reforms again took a backseat. And then Prime Minister, and that time Prime Minister was P.V. Narasimha Rao, could not carry on the bold liberalization program further. So the subsequent securities scam detailed the economy further. So subsidies were never cut as a planned, at that time. So public sector units could not be put on sale. So industrial disputes act remained intact. Then urban land ceiling act could not be amended. It happened finally in 1999. So a national renewal fund could not be set up and the insurance sector reforms remained in the basket. So now small donations, imagine how cheaply, just small donations is imagine how cheaply India's most powerful are willing to sell their souls. So to political parties, a mayor, in the case of the national based parties, so this are also, we can give example for, Bangaru Lakshman by their party, right? So I'm not taking example of any parties. I'm taking examples of all the parties which are leading in India, but I'm not taking their name. So this is, again come in the way of the bold economic steps proposed by the DNA government, lead by the, that time lead by the Bajpai. So the, Tahalka exposes covering the whole lot of shady deals on a videotapes in the recent past has put a big question mark on crucial economic, crucial economic issues such as disinvestment, then downseizing, then de-reservation, then labor reforms, power sector reforms. All these are the example of political environment. Okay, so now moving forward to the next, that is legal environment. uh, so public awareness campaigns still help in bending the policy stipulation a bit, but by and large the levers and the control held by the ministers and bureaucrats only during the license permit Raj and the prevailed the late 80s. CEO of the most companies in India were expected to know the domestic market, know the government, make short-term plans, be able to handle diversified companies and also implement the vision of the Babu, the owner team CD. The family-owned businesses that existed wanted flexor, yes man, collaborations and people with right connections with government officials. So licensing policies, quota restrictions, import duties, forex regulations, restrictions on FDI flows, control on distribution and pricing of commodities, regulations on all aspects of all the world. A sort of love-hate relationship between corporation heads and bureaucrats prevailed for a frustratingly long time. So the liberalization measures, macroeconomic reforms and structural adjustment brought about in the early 90s have altered the economic scenario quite dramatically. Moving forward to technological environment. So technological factors represents major opportunities and threats that must be taken into account while formulating strategies. So the technological breakthrough can dramatically influence the organization's products, services, then markets, even the suppliers, distributors, the competitors, the customers, then manufacturing process, then marketing practices and competitive position. Technological advancements can open up new markets, results in new and improved products, change the relative cost position in an industry and render existing products and services obsolete. Technological changes can reduce or eliminate cost barriers between businesses, create shorter products runs, create shortages in technical skills, and results in changing values and expectations of customers and employees. So the technological advancements can create new competitive advantage that are more powerful than existing ones. Recent technological advances, as we all know, well known in computers, lasers, robotics, satellites, networks, then optics, biometric, clothing, and related areas have paved the way of significant operations improvements. Manufacturers, banks, and retailers, for example, have used advances in computer technology to carry out their traditional tasks at lower cost and higher level of customer satisfaction. Moving forward to next, that is natural environment. The natural environment comprises of ecological, then geographical and topographical factors such as natural resources, weather, climate, locations that are relevant to business industries were set up historically in places where natural resources were abundance. It has created pockets of affluence, congestion and pollution all the same time. The natural endowments begin to be used, leading to air, water and land population and ozone depletion gradually. So air population is created by dust particles and the gases discharged that contaminates the air and cause global warming. So over the years, the growing number of coal burning factories, thermal plants, automobiles, all they participated the problem further. So water population occurs mainly when the industrial toxic waste, is come out into the nature's waterways. So the land pollution is caused by the disposal of hazardous industrial toxic waste in underground dumps. Now moving forward to the international environment. So the international developments can greatly impact the ability of an organization to do business abroad. For example, fluctuations of the rupee against foreign currencies influence the ability of an Indian company to compete in global markets. When the price of the rupee is high against foreign currencies, so Indian companies find it difficult to compete in the international markets. So conversely, when the rupee falls against the foreign currencies, new business opportunities open up. So international factors influence domestic companies in another way. So that is the producing new global competitors. So for example, a number of technological advances pioneered in the United States have led to successful products. So yet, in regard to such items are, phonographs, then color televisions, audio, videotape recorders, telephones, semiconductors, and computers. So US producers have gradually lost the major share of the domestic market to foreign competitors who took the basic technology and successfully built upon it. International factors assume greater importance when domestic companies directly depends on imports or exports to certain countries. For example, the slowdown in US economy is impacting the Fortune software exporters in India, who derive more than 60% of their revenues from the Silicon Valley. Now moving forward to the next, that is task operating competitive environment. This is also, the task environment is that part of the external environment which consists of specific outside forces with which an organization interfaces in the course of carrying out its operation. It consists of the actions in the organizations. So the immediate environment, like a micro environment, so usually a single organization has difficulty in exerting a direct influence on the external environment, but it may be more successful in affecting its own task or market environments. The various elements of the micro environment need to necessarily affect all the firms in particular industry in the same way. It's a important, right? So the important elements in the task environment of an organization typically include the clients, the competitors, the suppliers, and the labor supply and the government agencies like regulations. So let's start with the clients. So clients include the customers, owners, and partners of an organization. The purpose of the business is to create and sustain customers. In an open market, the organization turns into a lifeless machine without customers. We cannot think of hospitals without patients, universities without students, departmental stores without shoppers. So organizations that stay close to the customer survive and flourish in a competitive environment. Owners, shareholders, and partners to have a stake in the continued success of an organization. They get appropriate economic returns on their investments. Additionally, they can exert greater influence on the way the firm deals with the environment pollution, worker safely, product liability. Moving forward to the next, that is competitors. Okay, competitors' actions and responses to them are key in determining whether a firm will prosper. So important data about competitors that should be examined from time to time include a number of product lines, product differentiations, prices, quality, market share, advertising, location productivity, service, competitive advantages. So competition may be local, regional, national, or international in scope, and this is a constantly changing. So in higher technology fields, competition can be fierce and turbulent. For example, computer companies have undergone dramatic changes, an extremely tough product and price competition with a rapidly expanding market. So in recent years, deregulations has changed the face of competition in several industries such as banking, airlines, media telecommunication, passenger car industry, etc. Now moving forward to the next, that is suppliers. So suppliers of raw materials, equipment, parts, and money are, it's a very important part of any organizational external environment. So without a continuous flow of supplies, the organization's profitability will suffer. So the energy crisis in the early 70s affected the fortunes of many companies, so which depended heavily on petroleum for running their show. Generally speaking, organizations must have sources of supply that are dependable in terms of quantity, quality, delivery, and service, that offer suitable prices and terms of purchase. So over dependence on a single source of supply should also be avoidable. The organization should also be able to get a credit on easy terms of its operations. Now moving for the last one, that is labor supply. So the environment labor supply represents those individuals that may be employed to work for the organization. So all organizations need qualified trained hands to take care of assigned duties. This in turn is influenced by the economy. So employment, socio-culture factors, technological growth, unions, this influences of unions for regulating supply of labor when it's required is diminishing in recent years due to due to the strains, global competition, deregulations, then disenhancement members over limited succeeded achieved by unions. Now, the regulations of government agencies. So, the task environment contains a number of government agencies that provide services and monitor compliance with laws and regulations at local, state, or regional and national levels. So, these regulatory bodies have the potential to control, the legislate, and the influence and organization policies and practices. They also exercise the considerable influence on the cost of doing businesses when doing business globally. The firm must also take into account the procedures to be adopted in with the stipulation laid down by the institution such as IFC, World Bank, IMF, and Environmental Protection Agency. Right. So mission, culture, an outline of these factors is is the elements within and organization boundaries such as human resources and other resources. Okay, right. So now moving forward, next, this is check your progress, which you can do at your home. So this is like your homework, and if you would like to know more about this topic, you can go through all the books, right? So in today's lecture, we have come across what is the environment is classified into internal and external environment, and its features are mentioned, right, as complex, dynamic, challenging components of external environment are given also economic, social, and cultural, demographic, religious, ethical, and moral, political, legal, technological, natural, international, tax operating environment also we have come across. Even in this lecture, in this unit, we have also come across, apart from the features, we have come across the external environments. So in today's lecture, we have come across the features. We have come across the features of this strategic, all the external environment. We have come across the why this external environment is so important for business to get to achieve their goals. Right. So in next lecture, we will come to know the environmental scanning. We will also learn we will also learn the environmental scanning along with the internal environment and why this internal environment is important in any business to achieve their goals. Right. Thank you. Thank you all.
स्वाध्यायः परमं तप